All right, so welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And this time we're diving into the world of international cricket. We got an interesting source here from NDTV Sports that covers an upcoming T20 match between Zimbabwe and Pakistan, but also gives us some fascinating insights into global cricket rankings. So, yeah, buckle up.
Yeah, and what's particularly interesting about this series is that we're not actually starting at the beginning of the series. Pakistan already has a 1-0 lead after winning the first match quite decisively.
Oh, wow. Okay, so maybe upcoming is a bit of an understatement then. Our source says Pakistan won that first match by 57 runs. That sounds like a pretty significant victory. And now the teams are headed to Queen's Sports Club in Bulawayo for the second match. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that Zimbabwe locker room right
Oh, it's
now.
absolutely 57 runs is a big margin in T20 cricket. But before we jump ahead, let's rewind a bit and look at some of the key moments from that first match. It wasn't all smooth sailing for Pakistan, at least not initially.
Oh, really? I was kind of picturing them just dominating from the start.
Well, at one point, they were actually struggling at 104. And you have to remember that in T20 cricket, every wicket is precious. Losing four of your top batsmen can really put you on the back foot.
So how did they manage to turn things around? Was it like some miraculous comeback?
Well, you could say that. Tayyab Tahir and Irfan Khan came together and formed an unbeaten partnership, smashing 65 runs, and that really shifted the momentum. It put a lot of pressure on Zimbabwe's bowling and fielding.
Unbeaten. So these guys stayed on the field until the very end, just racking up runs.
Exactly. Zimbabwe just couldn't find a way to break that partnership. It was definitely a pivotal moment that swung the match in Pakistan's favor.
Okay, so for our listeners who are now completely hooked and want to watch this second match, what do they need to know?
Well, the match is scheduled for Tuesday, December 3rd at 5 p.m. IST,
IST being,
Indian Standard Time.
right, of course. Now, our source mentions that the match won't actually be televised in India, but don't worry, you can still catch all the action via live stream on Sony Levy and FanCode.
And it's important to remember that this match isn't just an isolated event. It's part of a much larger global cricketing landscape where teams are constantly vying for position and recognition.
And speaking of global rankings, our article conveniently includes the ICC rankings, Ray. Let's talk about those.
Absolutely. This is where we can really get into the deep dive aspect. The ICC rankings break things down into three different formats: Test, ODI, and T20.
Okay, for someone who's maybe not as familiar with cricket, could you break down those formats for us?
Sure. So, Test cricket is the oldest and longest format, with matches potentially lasting up to 5 days. It's a true test of endurance, skill, and strategy. Then you have ODI, which stands for One Day International. In this format, each team gets 50 overs to bat. And finally, there's T20, the shortest and most explosive format, where each team gets 20 overs.
So this Zimbabwe-Pakistan series is T20, which means lots of fast-paced action and probably some nail-biting moments.
You got it. Now, looking at these ICC rankings, some interesting things stand out. India, for example, is currently ranked number one in both T20 and ODI cricket.
Ah, India, the cricket powerhouse. I wonder what makes them so consistently dominant.
That's a great question, and one we might need a whole other deep dive to explore fully. But it's safe to say that their success is a combination of factors: passionate fans, a really robust domestic structure, and a constant stream of talented players.
So it's not just luck. There's a system in place that really fosters excellence.
Precisely, and while India's dominance isn't exactly a surprise, there are other rankings that might raise an eyebrow or two. For instance, Namibia has a surprisingly high ranking in ODI bowling.
Namibia. Seriously, I
It,
wouldn't have expected that at all.
it's a testament to the evolving landscape of cricket, with unexpected contenders emerging all the time. These rankings can really challenge our preconceived notions of who the strong teams are.
So for our listeners, why should they care about these rankings? Do they actually impact the game in a tangible way?
They absolutely do. Rankings can influence everything from team strategies and player perceptions to tournament seeding. A higher ranking can give a team a psychological edge and even influence how they approach certain matches.
So for Zimbabwe, going into this second match against Pakistan, do you think their lower ranking plays a role in their mindset?
It's certainly possible. It's always easier to go into a match with confidence when you're the higher ranked team. But then again, rankings don't tell the whole story.
Right. Remember those Namibian bowlers?
Exactly. There's always the potential for upsets and unexpected performances. That's what makes sports so exciting, wouldn't you say?
Couldn't agree more. So we've got Pakistan with the early series lead, but Zimbabwe might still have some tricks up their sleeve. I'm already on the edge of my seat.
Well, before you get too comfortable, there's another layer to this story that I think we need to address. Our source article highlighted the upcoming Women's T20 World Cup in 2024. And I think it's really important to acknowledge, the incredible talent and growth in the women's game. This tournament is going to be a phenomenal showcase of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's impossible to talk about cricket without acknowledging the women's game these days, especially with the World Cup on the horizon. It's a shame the article didn't actually delve into the specifics of the tournament, like, the schedule or the participating teams.
Yeah, I agree. A bit more information would have been great. But even without those details, it's a fantastic opportunity for our listeners to start getting excited about women's cricket and maybe discover some incredible athletes they haven't encountered before.
You're so right. And for our Indian listeners, this is especially relevant because the article did touch on India's squad and schedule for the tournament. So mark your calendars, folks.
Definitely. Okay, let's circle back to the Zimbabwe-Pakistan series for a second. We were talking about how those ICC rankings can sometimes be a little bit deceptive, and Zimbabwe might just pull off an upset. To get a better sense of what to expect, I think it's worth analyzing the tactics that were employed in that first match.
All right, let's break it down. What did Pakistan do to gain that initial upper hand?
Well, their batting strategy was quite interesting. They started off cautiously, focusing on building a solid foundation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
You don't want to lose those early wickets in a T20 match. It can really throw off your rhythm.
Exactly. But when Tahir and Khan came to the crease, the game plan completely changed. They went on the offensive, realizing that Zimbabwe's bowling was susceptible to aggressive batting. It was a calculated risk that paid off brilliantly.
So it wasn't just brute force. There was a tactical shift based on, reading the opponent's weaknesses.
Precisely. And that adaptability is a hallmark of successful T20 teams. You can't just stick to one plan. You have to be able to adjust based on the situation and the opposition.
This is what makes cricket so fascinating to me. It's not just about hitting the ball. It's a mental game as well.
Absolutely. Now, on the flip side, what can Zimbabwe do differently in this second match to challenge Pakistan?
Well, giving away 65 runs in an unbeaten partnership is a pretty tough pill to swallow. They definitely need to tighten up their bowling and fielding.
I would agree with that assessment. They need to find ways to restrict Pakistan's scoring rate, especially in those crucial death overs.
Death overs. Sounds ominous.
Well, the last few overs of a T20 innings are where the batsmen really go for broke, trying to maximize their score. It can be a really frantic and intense period of play.
So Zimbabwe needs to keep their cool under pressure and prevent those big hits. Not an easy task.
Indeed. They also need to improve their fielding. There were a few dropped catches in the first match that proved quite costly. Those missed opportunities can really swing the momentum of a game.
Oh, I bet a drop catch can feel like a punch to the gut, both for the fielder and the whole team. So what you're saying is Zimbabwe has its work cut out for them if they want to level this series.
That's a fair assessment. But let's not forget that cricket is a game of glorious uncertainties. We've seen some incredible comebacks and upsets over the years.
True. And maybe playing on their home turf at Queen's Sports Club will give them that extra edge. Home crowd advantage can be a powerful thing.
Absolutely. The support of the fans can definitely lift a team's spirits and inspire them to perform at their best. So to our listeners, don't write off Zimbabwe just yet. This series is far from over.
I love it's like a classic underdog story brewing.
Okay, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about some individual players who could make a big impact in this match. Who are you keeping an eye on?
Well, on the Pakistani side, I'm really intrigued by Tayyab Tahir. He's relatively new to the international scene, but showed incredible composure and power in that first match with his unbeaten 65.
Yeah, that was quite a performance. It'll be interesting to see if he can replicate that success under pressure.
Agreed. And for Zimbabwe, I'm looking to Sikandar Raza to lead the charge. He's a seasoned all-rounder, which means he's a valuable asset both with the bat and the ball. Hold on. For those of us who don't live and breathe cricket, can you unpack what an all-rounder is? Why is that role so crucial?
Of course, an all-rounder is essentially a player who can contribute significantly in both batting and bowling. They bring a lot of versatility to a team, especially in the T20 format, where you need players who can adapt to different situations.
So Raza is basically a double threat. He can score runs and take wickets. Sounds like a pretty important player for Zimbabwe.
Absolutely. His experience and leadership will be crucial in this match. It'll be interesting to see how he matches up against Pakistan's bowling attack, which is considered one of the best in the world.
Oh yeah, I've heard about those Pakistani fast bowlers. They can really bring the heat.
They can indeed. Players like Haris Rauf and Shaheen Afridi can generate serious speed and movement, making life very difficult for any batsman.
So to summarize, We've got the young rising star in Tahir on the Pakistani side, and the veteran all-rounder Raza leading the charge for Zimbabwe. And on top of that, we have the clash of a powerful Pakistani pace attack against Zimbabwe's batsmen. Sounds like this match is going to be a real nail-biter.
It certainly has all the ingredients for a thrilling contest. And remember, even though Pakistan won the first match convincingly, T20 cricket is a format where anything can happen. Zimbabwe still has a chance to bounce back and level the series.
This is why I love cricket. It's full of surprises and unexpected turns. Speaking of surprises, didn't you mention something else intriguing about the source material? Something that goes beyond this particular series?
Oh yeah, earlier we were talking about whether those ICC rankings actually, accurately reflect the current state of international cricket.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, it's a tough one. The rankings are definitely a useful starting point, I think, but they don't always tell the whole story. There are so many factors that contribute to a team's success, things that can't be easily quantified or plugged into a ranking system.
You're talking about things like team chemistry and adaptability, maybe even a bit of luck.
Exactly. And as we saw with Namibia's strong bowling ranking, those rankings don't always predict which teams will rise to the occasion.
So while the rankings can give us a general idea of the pecking order in international cricket, we should always be prepared for surprises and upsets.
Absolutely. And that unpredictability is part of what makes cricket so captivating, right? It's a sport where underdogs can rise and giants can fall. You can never take anything for granted.
Well said. So to recap for our listeners, we started with a single T20 match between Zimbabwe and Pakistan. And we ended up exploring the global landscape of cricket, from men's rankings to the upcoming Women's World Cup. What a journey.
It has been quite a journey. I hope our listeners feel a bit more equipped to follow all the exciting cricket action to come, both in this series and beyond.
Me too. And if you're looking for a place to start, I highly recommend tuning into that second Zimbabwe-Pakistan match on Tuesday.
It's gonna be a thriller, and who knows, maybe we'll even see Zimbabwe pull off that upset.
Anything's possible in the world of cricket. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those cricket scores coming.